Hey, what's up? Dusk here. So, as many of you know, I have been playing a lot of Skull Merchant lately, have kind of moved into being a Skull Merchant main. I've also someone who used to play the game a lot back in 2016 when the game first came out, 2017. I quit in 2018 and have been out of Dead by Daylight for years, but have come back recently as the game feels a little bit more fun these days, kinda sorta, than those gosh darn palette dents. But anyway, I just wanted to weigh in on the changes for Skull Merchant since I am someone who has been playing a lot of Skull Merchant and have been having a lot of success on Skull Merchant. So let's start at the top here. Increase the drone rotation speed by about 10%. I don't feel like this has any real impact on the game. The only thing drone rotation speed might help with is 3-genning, which is a pretty miserable strategy as it really only works against your low and your mid and your upper mid tier survivors. Your high tier survivors are really good about making sure that they don't get stuck in 3 gens, so it's kind of useless against them. But for everybody else below that, it's a nearly unbeatable strategy, and it's a very miserable one because it's one that feels like there isn't really any counterplay. I don't know, I just don't see this doing that much because there was already an add-on that did this. I've used that add-on and it felt beyond pointless. Now, obviously, you could combine this with the add-on to get an even faster scan line, and maybe with that, you will get some kind of meaningful scanning that you can throw on a loop that will be very impactful, but I doubt it. Because on a loop, hands down, the best add-on is low power mode, which turns your drone into a tripwire, and you can just put the tripwire across where the pallet is. Every time they run the loop on the pallet, they get scanned. Like, you can't really beat that. So I don't see the rotation speed as doing anything except for empowering the 3-gen. So this to me is a non-buff. Now we have the increased hindered status effect from getting scanned from 8 to 10%. This is a little bit more impactful because I used the add-on that already did that, moved it from 8% to 10%. And that hinder was often just enough to be able to outplay a loop where I could get a hit on a hindered survivor. And then, of course, if someone gets hindered, they run through a drone and get hindered trying to W away, I would definitely get the hit there. But so I do like it. It is a buff. But this means that the add-on, going up to 12% hindered, you get a little bit more of a diminished return, which isn't great. So I just feel like I probably won't be using that add-on anymore, which would be fine if Skull Merchant had any other add-ons that were really that great, but she kind of doesn't. That feels like kind of a non-buff to me as well. And then we have decreased the drone deployment cooldown to 7 seconds from 10 seconds, which feels like a pretty big buff, but at the same time, I don't really know what scenario this is referring to. Like, if you're wanting to outplay a loop and you're wanting to set up 2 drones, 7 seconds is still an incredibly long amount of time. Like, that's not great. There's no threshold that gets crossed where you have a play that you want to make and that you can't, and going from 10 to 7 seconds suddenly allows you to make that play. It doesn't. Now, if you want to set up like drones in an area, instead of taking 30 seconds to do that, I guess it wouldn't be 30 seconds. I guess it would be 20 seconds. Instead of 20 seconds now, because you have drone 1 and then a cooldown, and then drone 2, a cooldown, and then the third one. And so you get like 2 cooldowns that you have to set through. So you go from 20 seconds to 14 seconds to set up like a 3-drone area. And that's kind of nice, but again, unless you're trying to set up a 3-gen or something, where you need to get like some drones out very quickly in an area, I just don't really see what this is going to do outside that. Again, if you're trying to outplay a loop and you need like 14 to 21 seconds to like set all these drones up to outplay this loop, like, you've already lost the loop in that, like, because you've not even really started scanning the survivor at this point, really. So I'm not really sure about this, especially because it comes with a decrease to the undetectable duration, because your undetectable duration has to be shorter than the drone cooldown. Otherwise, you could be permanently undetectable for the entire match, which I get that that's not what they're going for. Post edit Dusk here. So there's an add-on that increases your undetectable duration by 20%, and I just assumed they did the math on this and that it was going to fall underneath that 7 seconds. But I did the math on it just for curiosity, and it actually takes that 6 seconds and punches it up to 7.2, which means that you will have permanent stealth, which is actually an incredibly powerful buff. But since they said in the dev live stream, we don't want the Skull Merchant to have permanent stealth, that makes me think that once this hits PTB, they'll nerf that add-on. However, if they don't, this is an incredible buff. If they do nerf the add-on, then the whole thing is just another nerf to Skull Merchant, and it's garbage. But yeah, so I just wanted to throw this in here. So far we have a buff that isn't really going to do anything, a buff that is going to have very minimal effect, and then a huge nerf, which is going to be effect. So far they've just nerfed Skull Merchant. Now we have remove fast vault immunity to scan lines. Now this one is an actual buff. I did not know that this was a thing, but it certainly explains some of the struggles I have had with trying to get scans up. So this is going to let you get some scans and pressure and outplay a loop that might have taken much, much longer to outplay because of scan immunity that they were able to basically spam, right? Because the quicker you can get a scan up, the quicker you can start getting that hinder status applied, and the quicker you can move to getting that down at that point. Because the trap is going to put them in broken state, so that's a hit. And then, of course, once they're hindered, hopefully then you get another hit that follows that. So this is actually probably the biggest meaningful buff so far in the entire thing. And then we have every 2.5 seconds standing underneath the drone, the survivor gains a lock on. Whereas before it was instant. If they went underneath the drone, which you could, again, use on a loop, you know, that could be like really powerful. But now basically they've just removed that. So this is just another like huge nerf, but it's also kind of a niche nerf. So I don't think this nerf will really be all that big of a deal, to be honest. So overall, when I look at this, I see just one very average buff, and that's it. I don't think this is going to replace a rework. I do think it's going to push Skull Merchant back into like 3-genning a little bit more, and I'm sad that they basically shelved the rework or use this as an excuse to shelf the rework until they get the feedback that it really wasn't all that great. So I don't know. I may quit playing Skull Merchant and just go back to Freddy after this point. The excitement of a potential rework is part of what got me into playing Skull Merchant. The other things that they talked about in this dev stream were the anti-tunnel hook and slug changes, which again aren't great. I think this is behavior really barking up the wrong tree, not understanding that these are symptoms more than they are problems. You have seen so much more face camping and, you know, hardcore tunneling because mid and low tier killers have been nerfed so much that it's the only, you know, strong, viable strategy that they have left. And like that's that's the big issue, right? Is they've just taken everything else on the table or off the table, and they're like, why are killers doing this now? Let's just put it in blunt terms. If slugging and tunneling are ruining your game and making survivors uninstall, then why don't we see about just removing those mechanics from the game? Okay, let's take that another way. You have mechanics that people hate and they're causing mass uninstalls, but then you try to keep them in your game somehow. That doesn't make any sense. You should probably just remove or, you know, rework those mechanics so that they don't do what they do, which is preventing people from playing the game. No survivor wants to sit in queue, wait for a match, get in, and then spend that entire match sitting on the ground or sitting on a hook, basically sitting back in their chair AFK going, maybe I'll get to play sometime. Like, nobody wants to do that, so probably take that mechanic out of your game and then just replace it with something else. So overall, like, I was really excited to see some of the stuff in this dev stream. I feel like most of the dev stream was kind of a big disappointment, and I don't know. There are still killers that are fun. I'll probably just move to a more fun killer at this point. And Dead by Daylight is still a great waiting room while we wait for Halloween 2026 to come out. Looking forward to that game. Also, what was it? Outlast Trials just got an asymmetrical mode, and it looks pretty cool as well. So I think I'm going to go check that out. But I'm probably still going to play Dead by Daylight. The game is still pretty fun. It's got a lot of quality of life in it. It's just some killers are just not all that fun and are slowly being removed from the game by weird decisions. But yeah, that's my 2 cents. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you disagree or agree, and if you have any more insights on like Skull Merchant or whatever, just let me know. Anyway, that's gonna be it for this one. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.